Hey guys, red black greetings. This is Flamengo. Welcome to the Paparazzo Rubro Negro channel. If you're here, please follow, like, and share on all platforms. On YouTube, subscribe below and turn on notifications. And hit the bell and leave that awesome like on the video. We're here with a lot of information about Mingo for you. This thing about Flamengo looking for wingers, players as options for both the left and right sides. We're bringing you a lot of information about that. The transfer market doesn't stop after we suggested that Flamengo try to swoop in on Fluminense for Buangá since the deal was cooling off. Now there's new information that Fluminense is moving forward again. Flamengo is going to look for another signing, another option. That's it. Flamengo, as you know, has money and is looking for some big signings, mainly for the attack. Flamengo is looking to strengthen their offense. Now, and we're bringing you a lot of information here, reminding you that you can get this jersey and other Flamengo jerseys here on YouTube Shopping. You can access it now and you'll find the best jerseys. And you'll help Flamengo because it's official merchandise. You help Flamengo, you help us. We're also here with the shopping feature in our videos. So you always go to our profile on YouTube and you'll find it right here, just below the video on YouTube Shopping. All the options for jerseys, and we also include some cheaper jerseys from Brazilian. Man, they're beautiful too. Lots of options for you. We just finished the Placar show on Placar Aberto. We were talking about this there. Ilan talked about the Buangá situation, which apparently has moved forward again. With Fluminense, we also talked about Flamengo looking for options for the attack. But it's very important to remind you all that all our sponsors are there in the pinned comment. And we also have Haroldo's Caravan here, which always joins us, reminding you that you can secure your spot at the games in Rio de Janeiro and away games with Haroldo's Caravan. If you haven't watched the Placar Aberto show, go to Placar as well. Subscribe and follow because our show is really great. Every day at 1 in the afternoon, Monday to Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, let's bring some important information here. It came out that Flamengo supposedly made a new inquiry about Marcos Leonardo. A source connected to Flamengo's board denies it and says that Flamengo did not make a new inquiry about Marcos Leonardo. But Pilhado brought some important information, an important piece of news in this case about Marcos Leonardo, okay? Let's follow here what Pilhado said.
Look, here's an exclusive piece of news from Pilhado, this time regarding Marcos Leonardo's name at Flamengo, okay? I spoke with people very close to the player who assured that he has no resistance at all to Flamengo. As it seemed to some Flamengo directors in the last inquiry they made about Marcos Leonardo, on the contrary, he has great respect for Flamengo because he knows how big the club is.
But Pilhado, that's not the problem. The problem is that there are people at Flamengo who even like it. But Filipe wants a player with a different profile. He already said that if they want to sign him, he has to find a way to use him. But Filipe wants a different profile.
Another exclusive news about the inquiry they made to Marcos Leonardo. On the contrary, he has great respect for Flamengo because he knows how big the club is in Brazil. In other words, the justification that Marcos Leonardo didn't want Flamengo loses some ground. Now, I also spoke with some very important people at Flamengo, and what they say is that the name could really be considered. There could be some convincing of Filipe Luís once again, because Filipe Luís was convinced about Marcos Leonardo's name in the middle of last year. Since it didn't happen, why? Because Marcos Leonardo would have prioritized São Paulo. And now, once again, Flamengo's management might convince Filipe Luís regarding Marcos Leonardo's name. However, what Flamengo's management expects or is looking for from Marcos Leonardo or his staff. Because when Flamengo reached out last time, he supposedly refused and said that if he were to return to Brazil, he would like to go back to São Paulo. So I spoke with both sides, making it very clear Flamengo would now be willing to negotiate again with Marcos Leonardo. Yes, because the management would try to convince Filipe Luís.
However, he would need to leave.
A contact from Marcos Leonardo or his staff.
Marcos holds a grudge against Filipe, that's it.
Even Flamengo's directors said they weren't even answered by Marcos Leonardo's agent, so exclusive information. Marcos Leonardo has no resistance at all.
There is no resistance.
Flamengo really prioritized São Paulo last time, but he has a lot of respect for Flamengo and knows how big Flamengo is. And on Flamengo's side, the club is already reconsidering a deal with Marcos Leonardo, knowing that he is more available now. In the market, however, they expect the player to make a move, since last time he turned down Flamengo, prioritizing São Paulo.
So, the thing is, I even told Flamengo, if you're not going to get Marcos Leonardo, which, by the way, wasn't information from Flamengo, okay, guys? I suggested that Flamengo should swoop in on Fluminense and sign Buangá. That way you mess with a rival and still bring in a quality player. But if you have Marcos Leonardo, who is exactly what Flamengo needs, precisely what Flamengo needs, a striker not in the profile that Filipe wants, maybe, but if he's convinced, I think it could be interesting. Okay? We have here the news about Buangá Fluminense. Look at that. Fluminense keeps Buangá as a priority. It's already been here. Look, according to Globo Esporte, let me close this for a minute. These sites with a bunch of ads, it's complicated, right? I didn't go straight to Globo Esporte, but that's okay. According to Globo Esporte, Fluminense managed to unlock part of the negotiation with Los Angeles Football Club for the signing of forward Denis Buangá. It was reported that the offer of $15 million, 78 million reais was accepted, as well as the agreed payment method. At this moment, there are no obstacles for the deal to be closed. Is there a problem at the current stage of the negotiation? It's on the Los Angeles Football Club side. That's because the American club wants a player to replace Buangá and expects this to be settled before the Franco-Gabonese leaves the United States. Okay, before he leaves the Major League Soccer, they want to sign a replacement. At this moment, for now, GE makes it clear that the management of Tricolor is waiting for the green light from Los Angeles Football Club. So, with that, Fluminense is moving forward again. There isn't a deal yet. It's not closed yet. And this turnaround regarding Marco Leonardo, which Pilhado mentioned that Filipe could be convinced would already be Flamengo's solution for the attack, right? Although GE also reported earlier that Flamengo is looking for a winger. Besides the striker issue, the center forward, Flamengo is also looking for a winger, a wide player, okay? We have here now Coluna do Fla in partnership with the Paparazzo Rubro Negro channel, covering Flamengo's departure for Vitória, right? Bringing you the list of players called up. Alexandro, Andrew, Ayrton, Lucas, Bruno, Enrique Carrascal, Daniel Salles, Danilo de Arrascaeta de la Cruz, Diogo Alves de la Cruz. Again, listed here are Emerson Royal, Eric Pulgar, Everton Cebolinha, Everton Araújo, Leo Ortiz, Lucas Paquetá, Leo Pereira, Pablo Lucio, Pedro Gonçalo, Paulo Plata, Agustin Rossi, Samuel Lino, Vitão, and Wallace Young. Even in final negotiations with Red Bull Bragantino, Wallace Young is listed again. Instead, all right, Flamengo is... There's some important information for us to bring here before we continue. Flamengo's departure is that Flamengo barely escaped. In the Carioca Championship, they managed to secure the last spot in Group D for the quarterfinals. But internally, the championship is still being treated as part of the season's planning. Okay? Since the beginning of the championship, the coaching staff has chosen to rotate the squad, alternating starters and substitutes, prioritizing the players' physical management. Even needing to win in the last round, important players were rested. In the quarterfinals, Rubro Negro faces Botafogo in a single match at Engenhão. The club is not giving up on the Carioca and is aiming for its 40th state title, but will prioritize the Brasileirão and the Recopa Sudamericana. More worn-out athletes may be rested. The FERG regulations require a minimum use of main squad players starting from the third round under the risk of losing the participation quota in the tournament. Flamengo has the game against Vitória on Tuesday and has plenty of time. 5 days until the game against Botafogo, so at least there's not much of an issue with fatigue. There's no game against Botafogo at Engenhão on the 15th, and Botafogo doesn't have an advantage. They're just playing at Engenhão. The crowd is split evenly, and if it's a draw, it goes to penalties. Botafogo will probably play with a mixed team. They shouldn't play with their main squad either because they'll have a game at high altitude and another game after Flamengo. In the Brasileirão, they play on Thursday. Flamengo faces Lanús, also only on the following Thursday. So again, there's a gap between one game and the next. They have 5 days of rest, 4 days of rest, but they have 3 days to train. So there's plenty of time as well. And on the 22nd, there's the Carioca semi-final, home and away games in the semi-final. And that's if they get past the quarterfinals. Flamengo faces Lanús in the Recopa. The second leg is on February 26th, and there would be the Carioca semi-final or Taça Rio. In this case, the second leg on March 1st. Remember, if Flamengo loses to Botafogo, they're eliminated in the Carioca quarterfinals. They still have the Taça Rio to play for, but it no longer counts for relegation. In other words, Flamengo would put the under-20 team and alternative squad to play in the Taça Rio, so Flamengo would reduce the issue of scheduling and everything else. On one hand, Flamengo wouldn't win the Carioca title. They can't be relegated anymore. I'm a guy who wants to win the 40th title and be a 3-time champion. But there are a lot of people who are in favor of taking the opportunity to shorten the schedule. Flamengo would reduce 3 dates on the schedule, because they would play with the under-20 team and so on, and the Taça Rio would gain 3 dates. But there's a prize. The Carioca is worth money. It's worth about 20-something million, 26, 27 million reais in total. If you win the championship, I don't think it's money to throw away. No, but that's fine. You'd gain 3 dates, including the Mirassol game on the 25th. Now that it's postponed, you could play on the semi-final dates instead. I don't know if maybe in the final, because maybe even if there's a semi-final game, even if it's the Taça Rio, in this case, the Taça Rio game, maybe you can't schedule a game on the same date. Of course you couldn't. So Flamengo would actually gain a date to play this postponed game against Mirassol, precisely on the date of the Carioca final. But honestly, I think Flamengo should go for it, even if they have to field a mixed team and all, to go after that 40th title and the three-peat. The semi-final, March 1st, the Carioca semi-final, the second leg of the Taça Rio, or Taça Rio in this case. But the Carioca semi-final is on March 1st. And on March 7th or 8th, it's the final of the Carioca or Taça Rio. But then there's the matter of the game. In the case of the Taça Rio, the final of the Taça Rio, if the team is eliminated in the semi-final, then there's no need to play. But that's it. There's this whole calendar issue where you might have to use the under-20 team and all. You lose the participation quota. There's the financial aspect. I think Flamengo will have to weigh all of this, guys. It's something Flamengo needs to consider. Let me tell you that the midfielder Jorge Carrascal leads Flamengo in chances created, with 10 and clear chances created, with 2. In addition, he has started 3 games, averaging 64 minutes per match and totaling 191 minutes on the field. The Colombian has also scored a goal and has already appeared once in the Team of the Week, highlighting his importance in Flamengo's attack. So Flamengo and then Carrascal being the player with the most chances created, the one who creates the most chances for Flamengo. And he was one of the Flamengo players who traveled, remembering that he didn't have to serve a suspension in the Brasileirão. The Supercopa suspension will be for next year if Flamengo actually makes it to another Supercopa. And now, are you going to follow Flamengo's trip to Salvador to face Vitória and go after their first win, a win over Vitória in the Brasileirão, a win where we scored a historic thrashing last year, and
Flamengo's delegation is arriving right now, here at the very important person lounge of Galeão Airport, for another trip for a Brazilian championship match, this time heading to Salvador, a game that's part of the 3rd round of the Brazilian championship. Flamengo, who will face Vitória tomorrow at 9:30 post-meridium for the 3rd round of the Brasileirão, it's a game of great importance, especially because, so far, Flamengo still hasn't managed a positive result, so they're going after their first win in the Brazilian championship. And here, bringing you a detail, the 2 buses that bring Flamengo's delegation, that blue bus over there is the one that brings the club's communication staff, security advisors, and photographers. And that traditional red and black one, the red and black bus that the fans, just by looking, already know what it is. The squad of Clube de Regatas do Flamengo arriving for another trip in the 2026 season. Bringing you the details here, the players are on this bus right here. The bus is pulling up at this very moment. Galeão Noble Hall. And here on Fla's column, you'll closely follow the players as they get off. Entering there at the Noble Hall of Galeão Airport, right at the door as usual, Gabriel China, Flamengo's football supervisor, followed by Jose Aboto, Flamengo's man, the first to get off. Next, Leo Pereira, the defender, is also getting off and entering the Noble Hall at Galeão Airport. Next here, waiting for the other players to get off during this boarding. Now here comes Lucas Paquetá, a Flamengo youth product, heading out for another trip as he returns to Flamengo. Thank you, homegrown talent from Ninho. He went to get his suitcase over there, went to get his bag to enter the very important person lounge at Galeão Airport. He left through the back. Next up, Danilo, also a defender, Danilo coming out from the back side of the bus, defender Vitão appearing here on Coluna do Flamengo's screen as well. The movement of employees at the airport increased with the arrival of Flamengo's squad. Daniel Sales, fullback, one of Filipe Luiz's bets for this 2026 season. A player who has been getting minutes and opportunities with the professionals. Leo Ortiz, defender Leo Ortiz is another player coming down. Always with that little pillow there, making his presence known. Emerson Royal, Everton, Cebolinha coming in there. Now in the Noble Hall of Galeão, Coach Filipe Luís is also coming down right now, as usual, greeting his security guard Pinheiro, a club treasure. Alassian back on the squad list, Ayrton, Lucas. There, Flamengo's youth gem, Pablo, Lucio Tacante. Pedro, Flamengo's number 9, who broke his scoring drought last Saturday and now looks to keep it going. Flamengo's goal streak this season. The delegation is now making its way down the midfield. Bela Cruz, Uruguay. Flamengo coming down here now at this moment. Left back Alexander is also getting off the bus and entering the Noble Hall of Galeão Airport. There's a lot of movement here at the airport with many club staff and also airport employees present. And here at Flavio's Colombo, everyone is closely following all this movement. The Flamengo squad has arrived here getting ready to board for Salvador for the match against Vitória, the third round of the Brasileirão. Now a member of Flamengo's coaching staff coming down next. Here comes goalkeeper Diogo Alves, followed by Andre, Flamengo's new signing for the 2026 season. Forward Plata, Gonzalo Plata, is also getting off the bus, followed by number 27, Bruno Henrique. And right after comes Everton. Araujo has been standing out. There he is getting some attention. Eric Puga is also another player getting off right after. Jorge Carrascal, Rodrigo Caio, the assistant coach, and Arrascaeta, Flamengo's number 10. He's one of the last players to leave the bus here for this trip. Heading to Salvador, where Flamengo faces Vitória at 9:30 post-meridium at Baradão Stadium tomorrow, Tuesday, for the third round of the Brasileirão. Samuel Lino is one of the last players to leave, followed by the goalkeeper Rossi. The Argentine Agostinho Rossi is another. Forward, another Flamengo player arriving here. Now they're about to travel for this important match, an important commitment for Flamengo and another round of the Brasileirão.